my speaker singing Bombay, Bombay, Bombay. Ka'u Desert on my left, Kapapala on my right. I'm so blessed to live on Hawaii Isle. As I kalaiwa ilalo from the slopes of a volcano, the never-ending beauty makes me smile. Namanu pikake, dispele hulu, catch my maka every time. Kuehu kalepo in Pahala, same old people driving by. Just a few things on my morning drive. As I kalaiwa iuka on the slopes of Mauna Loa, the never-ending beauty makes me smile. Kalehuaula, Pekamamo, and the nene flying by. Smoke from the crater, Hale Ma'u, rising high into the sky. Just a few things on my morning drive. As I kalaiwa ilalo from the slopes of a volcano, the never-ending beauty.
Aloha mai kako. My name is David Lassner, and I serve as the president of the University of Hawaiʻi, leading our 10-campus system and our flagship University of Hawaiʻi at Manoa. We serve these islands, which are the ancestral home of the Kanaka Maoli, or Native Hawaiian people. My own ancestry involves centuries of wandering, but I am now privileged to make my home in lush Waiomau within Palolo Valley, in the Ahupua'a of Waikiki, within the Moku of Kona on the island of Oahu. I am personally grateful to this place and her people, both of which have embraced me for over 4 decades. Over 125 years ago, Queen Liliuokalani yielded the Hawaiian Kingdom and these territories under duress and protest to the United States to avoid the bloodshed of her people. And it was nearly 30 years ago that the U.S. government formally apologized for this act, which it has acknowledged as an illegal overthrow. As the only public institution of higher education in Hawaii, the University of Hawaii is strategically clear in our commitment to become a model Indigenous serving institution, committed to the sustainability of Hawaii's people, islands, language, culture, and knowledge. This strategic imperative is named Hawaii Papaokeao, or the Hawaii Foundation of Enlightened Knowledge. So today I welcome you all, and I offer up an invitation to join us in celebrating the University of Hawaii's ongoing contributions to the advancement of Indigenous Hawaiian knowledge. Mahalo.
Aloha mai kako. I am Mainette Kapiahiokalani Patakinani Benham, Chancellor of the University of Hawaii West Oahu and co-chair of Hawaii Papaokeao, with Chancellor of Maui College, Dr. Louis Hokoana. Hawaii Papaokeao was established in January 2012 and consists of representatives from all 10 campuses. The purpose of this presidentially appointed committee is to set goals and objectives to address the higher education needs of Native Hawaiians through 3 pathways: leadership development, community engagement, and Hawaiian language and cultural parity. At our first meeting this school year, our discussions focused on how our Native Hawaiian students, faculty, and staff and their families were managing this challenging time. Committee members shared that folks on their campus were feeling isolated, disconnected, and depressed due to the psychosocial, emotional, and economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we asked, what could Hawaii Papahoʻokeʻau do? And after some discussion led by Tapori Tangaro, representative from Hawaii Community College, we decided that we wanted to address Indigenous well-being through the nourishment that can be found in the abundant talent and knowledge across our campus communities. Hence, the birth of the inaugural Hawaii Papahoʻokeʻau series, He Ukana Aloha Kā Kīlauea. Mahalo for joining us today, and we hope to see you and your family and friends every month through June of 2021 as we lovingly share this makana with you. E nā nea kākou I ka ike kupuna I ho'owili ai mai ki kilo mai. Enjoy and be enriched by the wisdom passed down from our kupuna through so many generations to us today. Aloha.
No tihi lawe a te aloha la hanali o ka ke le ta moana la hana holo ma mua holo ma ho pela hana tau pono tai hui te matahani la hana hae o mai ki la hue ala hana tau ahe ahe ia I taili taila hana haki nua kauahi I te taila hana no mea e kaui la malaha lola hana waho mai au o taihi vila hana no kamehameha e lima.
Vilina mai kako, e na hoa makamako ki ia aina aloha ne. Mai ka mokapuni nui o ke ave, a hiki lo aku I ka mole olu olu a lehua. Aloha. It is my distinct privilege today to get to introduce Michelle Kamakanoi Noi Tupo, who is a mother, a wife, and a Kanaka Maoli scholar. Her ohana is the Hapai ohana from Kohala and Hilo on Hawaii Island, and the Nelson ohana, who came from Makawao on Maui. She was born at Waikiki and raised in Aiea on Oahu. Noi is a Hawaiian Studies instructor and director of Windward Community College's Ike Kaiaulu Community Engagement Program. She specializes in Native Hawaiian and Pacific Island cultures, oceanic arts, literature, and film. She has taught at academic institutions of higher education in both Hawaii and Aotearoa for over 20 years. Her master's degree from the University of Hawaiʻi Center for Pacific Island Studies, entitled Pacific Voices Through Film, in which she speaks of film as a powerful tool in bridging oral and written traditions. In the late 1990s, she did doctoral work at the University of Auckland in the heart of the emerging contemporary Maori and Pacific Island literary and filmmaking communities, where she continued her work on the role of storytelling in Oceania. Noi is known for her kind intelligence and compassion, mentoring and growing our students and our community. It's a distinct privilege to introduce her. Welcome, Noi.
Aloha mai kako. It is so nice to see everybody. I wish I could actually see you, but I want to welcome you today to our webinar series. Today's talk is Indigenous Voices. And I'm very, very excited to share with you basically what is my passion. I want to, of course, greet all of you as I did. And with my greeting, I also bring to you all of my ancestors. They're all in the room. I take them wherever I go. So these are the names, the place names, and the faces of all who are with me all the time. Just like you have invited your ancestors into your space, I have also brought mine and wanted to share them with you today. You've heard a little bit about who I am from our wonderful Chancellor Artis. And one thing that has happened in the process of putting together today's presentation is the fact that I took out my thesis and realized it was 21 years old, and which made me feel really, really, really old. But as Artis mentioned, the title of my thesis is Pacific Voices Through Film. And I would say that that has sustained me through the last 20 years of teaching, because those are the voices that I want to empower and promote. And that empowerment is what keeps pushing me forward. My goal always with my students is to have them realize that their voices count and that their voices should be highlighted and should be put on the same stage as we put other writers and voices. So that is kind of a cool revelation. And the exciting part is that I've been looking at film and literature, and those are the voices, those contemporary voices that are published out of garages in Fiji, or that come from somebody's idea that they were going to self-publish and get their voices out. So I want to talk about that today, but before I talk about and share those Indigenous voices with you today, I want to pay tribute to the fact that we come from an oral tradition. And for me, it makes a lot of sense that our orality as Indigenous people is what drives us to share our voice. In fact, we can get rid of the part where we read books. Yeah, we can just go from our orality as Indigenous people to orality in film. And that's kind of what my thesis looked at the time, 20 years ago, when places like Aotearoa were making films and sharing stories. Here in Hawaii, we were just on the cutting edge 20 years ago of making films and sharing our voices. But it comes from this orality, this Indigenous orality of oli, of mele, of olelo, mo'olelo, done in Olelo, Hawaii. But I want to point out something that I point out in some of my literature classes, and that is the technique of storytelling. In this case, I've added in the Samoan sui fe filoi, and the fact that there is actually a storytelling technique that is used in Samoa and used throughout the Pacific, in which it's like the sewing of flowers in a lei or in an ula that I'm wearing, where each individual flower is a story, or each individual flower is a concept, and it's strewn together into the form of a lei. And that narrative runs through the middle as the string of the lei, but it is actually the stories can stand individually on their own. And this technique, storytelling technique, may not follow Western literary format of beginning, middle, end, and pau. It is more circular in nature, so it's a different type of storytelling. And what's fabulous is one of the books that I'm going to talk about today by Cia Figuel follows that format. And for our students to realize that we have our own style, we have our own way of telling stories is very, very empowering. So it would be easy for somebody to say, well, when we're given the tools of pencil, paper, and film, I took that out, being given. Were we given it? Well, we were provided by those who turned our orality into the written word. But now that we're using it, what do we say? What do we say to those that we want to talk back to? So pen, paper, film, kamea, 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 all of that, what are we saying? So let me introduce you to just a small, squishy amount of people from the bigger, wider audience, writers. I've chosen today 8, we'll see if we get through all of them, 8 people who are out there, and they are sharing their voices through various mediums, through poetry, through story, through film, through quotations that are so powerful. I want to share those with you today and I want you to think about, what is it that they're choosing to say? Yeah? So I'm going to share my absolute favorite poem first, and that is by Joseph Balez, a Hawaiian voice. It's called Warrior Brown. I have a spear. For the sake of universality, I wrap it in kapa poho of red, yellow, white, black, and brown, and place it upon an altar between my temples in an idealistic temple of peace. There's something empowering about having a spear, and there's something empowering about having that spear right here between your temples, yeah? Not here, ready for war, but here, and realizing that that in itself can mean so much to you as a Hawaiian. And then another one that, again, has a spear. I don't know what it is about me and spears, but maybe it's that powerful feeling of holding that spear. This is by Kalani Kahele. It's called Time Has Come. Time has come to sharpen our spears, for in the sharpening of our spears, the tongue will sharpen itself. Again, I'm promoting empowerment through the idea of empowering ourselves, and empowering ourselves through education, empowering ourselves through story, empowering ourselves through listening to our ancestors that, remember, they're all here. Can you see them? They're here, and they're with you as well. So another quote that is one that I really like, and it connects us as Hawaiians to the rest of the ocean, Pacific Islands, Oceania. If we can write the ocean, we will never be silenced. So that also points to the fact that we have so many stories. We have so many words that we can use that are out in our families with our ancestors. And that was from Craig Perez. He is Chamorro. He is a professor up at the University of Hawaiʻi at Manoa. And that's from his poem entitled Interwoven. So I encourage you, as you see some of the names that I'm bringing forward, for you to go and find those books and find these quotes and find these poems, because it's going to be something that you will feel empowered by. Maybe not the same poems that I feel empowered by, that I put up on my wall, but you will find other quotes, you will find other poems and stories that you feel that form of empowerment from. Moving a little bit away from poetry, I want to focus on a short film. It is 10 minutes long. It was done in 2013 by filmmaker Kaliko Spencer, another name to watch out there in film. And it really is going to speak to you in a different way, one where the person that's in the narrative, in the film, works her way through time period in urban Hawaii. So enjoy this film. It's called Keao.
Come on, e ko uana o e o halaula mi o agali me manu e kani nei ke kuai ke kualo no I ku mahale huai ku moi e a iluna I o ia me o e la I kana hele I wa kana noia huai walo no I mai
pea and the tea leaf. Be ready in 10. On out. Don't forget, oil up.
O pelela ka ua kua miha kalani miha ka honua. Awa iku awa ilani ke awa ke awa nei o hiki aka. I kua i ku i mauli ola he awe ka ula e. No na wahine kapu kai ka awa e pele honua mea. E kala e hau mea wahine o ka wahine I Kīlauea. Nana I aia ho honu kalua o maua hine a makaliki o lua hine kalani o kuku e na o na wahine I ka inu hanawa ka nai nai a ke akua malihini e.
So, hard to deny the empowerment of a short film. And a short film done well will use very few words and many, many images. And as you saw in this short film, it's definitely a short film that tackles our relationship with identity as Hawaiians, and not only as Hawaiians, but as Indigenous people. You know, what is the role that we play when we skip back and forth between what our traditional ancestors would have us do and what contemporary society would have us do? So very, very powerful. So what would you say if somebody handed you a piece of paper and a pen and you were going to write something? This particular poem that I want to share from Imaikalani Kalahele, sorry, called Opalauka. Tall, in the twilight of dawn, hundreds of feet high, stand mountains of poured rubble. Powerful, yeah? Just using the image of our mountains, of, you know, the Ko'olau Mountains and how tall they stand, but at the end, curveball, yeah? Poured rubble. Empowerment, again, something so small, so I encourage everybody to get out a sheet of paper right now. Go, go, go. No, just kidding. In your spare time, grab some paper and pencil and just write what you're feeling, and then send it to me and we'll publish it. How's that? Challenge. The next thing I want to talk about actually is from Tahiti. And I was at a conference in Fiji hundreds of years ago. And this lady invites me to go have lunch. And I'm like, shoot. So we went to lunch and she goes, oh, you should read my book. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I didn't really take her seriously, honestly, and then kicked myself later when I looked up the book. The book was this book. And my friend, who I can now call my friend from that lunch in Fiji, Chantal, and I have created a friendship over the years. But it turns out that this particular book is very famous. And she is the first Maohi writer to publish a novel. Maohi meaning indigenous, Tahitian, from Tahiti. And what's amazing about this book, and it's a book that I've used in my literature classes over the years many, many times because I love it, is it's a love story. And even the most macho guy that walks into my classroom loves this love story. And I've had people come up afterwards, after they take my class, and go, I need to get that book because I want to use some of the words in it in my wedding. The words are beautiful. And Chantal, the way it originated was she had a diary and her sister decided to get it published. And she's like, what? You published my diary? And so before it completely got published, Chantal went in and put stories in between the beautiful lyrics and poetry that's in this book. So it is a novel. It's set in the time period of nuclear tests in Tahiti, and it is one of the most beautiful love stories ever. I want to read a quick quote from the book, because she's able to weave into this love story her beliefs about the presence of outsiders coming to Tahiti. Quote, "They will come on a boat with no outrigger, these children, these branches of the same tree that gave us life. Their bodies will be different from ours, but they will be our brothers, branches of the same tree. They will take our land for themselves. They will overturn our established order, and the sacred birds of land and sea will gather to mourn." A clear-sighted prediction that no one wanted to hear. The word cast on deaf ground. So in the book itself, she works on that interaction between native, indigenous, and non. And she does it in the form of a love story. And so it's just beautifully done. Another book that I absolutely adore is Where We Once Belonged. It is written by Sia Figuel. She is a Samoan writer. And this particular book has won all kinds of awards as well. And this is the book that I was speaking about earlier that uses the form of storytelling called Suife Filoi, where she has individual stories, which turn out to be individual chapters, and they are threaded together in a circular nature as a lay. So it's a coming-of-age book set in the 1970s, and I want to just read a quick part of the book that I think is so important because it's something that we don't necessarily think about. It's, quote, "I do not exist. I am not. Myself belongs not to me because I does not exist. I is always we, is part of the ainga. I am we. I does not exist." So part of the inner turmoil that this teenage Alofa is her name, this teenager is going through is trying to understand the role of I and herself, and in context of the we. And there's a lot of people that never ever do anything as an I. They are always doing things as a we. And so that trying to break away from the context of as a child being part of the we to becoming an adult as an I. So it's very interesting to understand Samoan culture through this coming of age story and storytelling in this book, Where We Once Belong. And she has won, as it says on this particular slide, it says winner of the Commonwealth Writers' Prize 1997, which is pretty impressive for one of her first novels. All right, before we run out of time, I have to share this next short film with you. It's from 2013. It's written by Leah Kihara, who is currently working at Kamehameha in the media department. This was her film contribution about the kind of the interaction of women and the role of women, Hawaiian women, in relationship to their surroundings. So it's a visual meditation per se. She had just come out of film school and she's using a lot of different techniques. So when you watch Ice Cream, that first section, she has used a film technique that blurs on purpose. So just don't think it's your computer. It is definitely an artistic type of expression. This particular film won the Film and Video Maker Award in 2002 at the Hawaii International Film Festival. It's been on PBS. It's traveled to film festivals around the world, and really kind of looks at women and Hawaiian women. So let's go ahead and watch Ice Cream, Floats, and Sundays.
I float. I float between sun and moon, hot, hot, and cold, heaven and earth, white and black, famine and fertility, froth and frost, morning and night, fire and rain, pain and pleasure, pride and humility, solid and liquid, creation, and destruction. Destruction and creation, liquid and solid. Humility and pride. Pleasure, pleasure and pain. Rain, rain and fire, fire. Night, night and morning, and morning. Frost and froth. Fertility, fertility and famine, and famine. Black and white. Earth and heaven. Cold and hot. Moon and sun. Yesterday and tomorrow and tomorrow and yesterday and tomorrow and yesterday. I float.
Now I want to, oh, I don't know about you guys, but now I want to eat beef stew. That last one on Sundays makes me want to eat beef stew. But anyway, I just want to break it up a little bit and kind of talk about each of the 3 vignettes. So I've put a little, on the slide you'll see that I have a kind of a list of some of the things that could be thought about during each of ice cream floats and sundaes. So in ice cream we have this kind of wahine wanting to find escape, having a suitcase full of angst, full of trying to be that modern Pacific woman, but yet wanting to just escape, yeah? And for her, maybe the happy medium was that ice cream and, what was that, a Lamborghini? Just kind of that juxtaposition between the two, between the natural world and the material world, and struggling with that. In floats, we have our relationship, just literally, our relationship with the natural world and the physical world, and finding that connection, that thing that keeps drawing you back here to Hawaii, to the ocean, to the ko'olau, which I like to call my mountains, and my family knows that exactly where I'm talking about. There's something that's just innately connects us to that place, and all the emotions and feelings that conjures up for you. And then Sundays, of course, juxtapositioning the sacred versus the secular, the modern Hawaiian woman to the ancient Hawaiian woman, or not so ancient, but in those photos. The beef stew, the cutting out the yellow page from longs, that's, the typical, that was our Sunday afternoon or morning thing that you did, at least when I was a kid. Not so much anymore, but when I was a kid, always pulling out that Sunday yellow section of the newspaper. And then Sunday activities outside and in church, using the church music in the background. So it really, all 3, ice cream floats and sundaes, really are this visual meditation in thinking about the Hawaiian woman and how she's had to evolve and change, becoming, but still connecting to her physical space. So very powerful in what exactly is a Hawaiian woman. Another one of my favorite quotes is by Teresia Tiaiwa. We sweat and cry salt water so that we know that the ocean is really in our blood. Having that connection, again, kind of goes with floats, in ice cream floats and sundaes, and having that connection with the ocean water. And all of these are very much, these tools have been given to us or have been put in our possession, as this quote says, or as this slide says. Film, poetry, novel writing, short stories, theater, film, visual art making, performance art, music, all of these things that we've had as now tools that we can use to express the way we're thinking, the way we're feeling, and what we want to say, writing back to those who have come into our place. In some cases, writing back to the colonizer. All these things are because of the tools that we've been given. Before we end today, I wanted to let you know that there is a class that I'm going to be teaching, actually 2 classes. In the fall, I'll be teaching Hawaiian Studies 238, which is a literature course looking exactly at Indigenous voice. And then in spring, I'll be teaching a class on film. So it's kind of a nice series to be able to investigate and look. One thing that's a little different about the way that I teach film and literature is that it is a literature class, but I look at it from a very much a cultural standpoint, where we're looking at the culture itself, whether it be the Hawaiian culture or Pacific Islands culture. We're looking at all of it through whatever medium we're investigating. So through the text of literature, through the text of film. And that's a little bit different than looking at literature for literature's sake. And so it is just kind of a different way of looking at things. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that using those those mediums can be super empowering. And if you are instructors or administrators or students or parents, these are all tools that you can give to your those of you who are teaching, those of you who are parenting. Use the skill of poetry of short storytelling to further your voices, your ancestors. And yeah, I think that's kind of my message today. And I want to thank all of you for being with us today, and mahalo. Mahalo for being here. Mahalo ya oko, ho'olohe ana mai. And my last thought for today is, may we all highly attune ourselves to our indigenous voices so that we may empower those around us and ourselves. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share in this mana'o. Mahalo.
Aloha mai kako.